Good evening and welcome to our weekly Parsha webcast. This week our class is being sponsored by Barry and Sharon Schechter in honor of Sharon's birthday, and we would like to wish her a happy birthday and many, many more birthdays to come in good health and good happiness, with lots of nachas from your children, and only good things.
Amen. Amen.
There's a word, an idea that the Rebbe quotes his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, as saying that the first portion in the Torah is a very happy portion, but it ends on a negative note. That's the portion of Bereshis. The portion of Bereshis talks about God creating the world, mankind, and that's a good thing, that's a happy thing, a good, wonderful thing. But at the end of the portion, we read that God was upset with mankind, and he decided to destroy the world with the flood. The second portion is not such a happy portion, because in it is the story of the flood, which destroyed the world, but it ends on a happy note, with the birth of Avraham Avinu. But this week, the third portion is the truly happy and joyous portion, because every day of the week, all 7 parts of the portion, we live with Avraham, the first Jew. The story of Avraham begins this week, and he's in every single part of the portion. So this is truly the joyous week. So this is the week that the story of Avraham begins. And the story begins with God appearing to Avraham, telling him that he should leave his father's house. He should leave his land, his birthplace, and his father's house. To the land, where to? To a land that God will show him. And of course, this land is the land of Israel. And there God tells him, I'll make you into a great nation. I'll bless you. Your name will become great. And you'll become a blessing to all mankind. And the story goes that he did this. Avraham packed up his bags, him and his wife, and all the people that he gathered around him, because don't forget that he was the father of a new idea. He brought the idea of monotheism to the world, the idea of believing in one God. At his time, no one believed in God. Everyone was an idol worshiper. So he started promoting this belief, and thousands upon thousands of people began to follow Avraham and his theology. So when he left to Israel, it says that he went with all those people. They all came with him. And he went up and down the land of Israel, and he scouted the land a little bit. But eventually God promised him that this land will be given to this will be the land of Israel for his descendants. But then a famine broke out, and he was forced to leave the land of Israel, because he had no provisions, there was no food. So where did he go? He went to Egypt. And in Egypt, the story goes that when they arrived in Egypt, he told his wife Sarah, you're a very, very attractive woman, and as such, I'm afraid that if people know that I'm your husband, you're my wife, they will kill me and they will capture you and kidnap you. And therefore, please do not say that I'm your husband. Let's play brother and sister, so that if they do capture you, at least they won't kill me. And which was in the discussion in its own right. Why did Avraham do this? And the answer that's given is because he knew without doubt that Sarah would be protected by God because of her great righteousness, and he wasn't sure about himself, so he took the risk, and she took the risk, and it turns out that she wasn't touched, She was taken to the house of Pharaoh, but she was unable to be touched. Miracles happened for her over there, as Avraham expected would happen. And as a result, the king of Egypt gave Avraham great gifts, because he realized that he was a holy person. Because he knew about the miracles that happened in his house, that they were unable to touch Sarah. And they all were afflicted with plagues. A plague broke out in his house. And he realized that he was messing with fire. So he returned Sarah to Avraham, and he gave Avraham and Sarah great gifts. And he became very wealthy from that. And he blessed them, and he left. And he went back to Israel. And who was with him? With him was his nephew, a man by the name of Lot, or Lot, however you want to pronounce it. And Avraham was very wealthy. And Lot also, on account of Avraham, was very wealthy. And their shepherds, they had lots of flock. And what happened was, the shepherds began to argue. Where to graze, where not. There was a lot of argument going on there, because the Lot's shepherds took the freedom to let the sheep wander wherever they wanted to graze, to eat the grass, even if it meant going into someone's private property. Avraham said, shepherds said, you can't do that. That's theft. You can go to the open fields that don't belong to anyone, but to allow the sheep to go into regular fields is a prohibition. It's theft. So an argument broke out, and Avraham ended up telling Lot, we have a problem here. Why don't you go this way, I'll go that way. Let's separate, because our shepherds and our ideals are not exactly the same. And Lot chose to live in the city of Sodom. You know where that is? Have you ever been to Sodom? No. So I've been there. It's right near En Gedi, near Masada. And we'll be in the area. We'll go visit. There's nothing to visit in Sodom, because it was all, as you know, it was all destroyed by a punishment. That we'll learn next week. But Sodom was a very, very bad place. The people there were exceedingly sinful, and this Lot chooses to go live among them. You can imagine that he wasn't exactly either, the big tzaddik. But be that as it may, that's where he settled. And when, again, God promises Avraham all kinds of blessings, and now a world war breaks out. Many kings ganged up against the king of Sodom and his band. It was 5 kings against 4 kings. It was a world war. And the 4 kings overpowered the 5 kings, and they took over the city of Sodom, and they captured Lot. And when Avraham heard that Lot was captured, he went and sent men, and he sent men to go and save him no matter what. He wasn't going to let his nephew Lot perish in this war, in captivity. And they saved him. And he brought him back, and he saved the people of Sodom also. And the king of Sodom wanted to reward Avraham for this, and he said, "No, thank you. I don't need anything from you, And that's it. And he said, just pay for what the people that went to war spent, pay them back, and that's it. The next thing is one of the most famous events that happened in the whole Bible, and that is the famous covenant between the parts. This happens when Avraham is 70 years old. God appears to Avraham, and he tells him that he wants to enter into a covenant. Covenant is a promise, a commitment. that God made with Avraham, which was the covenant that he made with the Jewish people. And that was that he foretold him that you will be a father to a great nation. Many, many descendants will come from you. At that time, Avraham didn't have any children yet. And he promised him children, and he promised him that they would be a new nation, but that this nation would be led into exile into a land that is foreign to them for 400 years, and that they will be tortured there, and this, of course, is Egypt. But later they will go out with great fortune, and they will become God's people. And that was when they left Egypt and went to Mount Sinai to become the people of the covenant, the people of God. And what happened was God told Avraham to take an animal. Where is it? He told him to take 3 calves and 1 goat, 3 goats, and 3 rams, and a bird and a dove, a turtle dove and a fledgling, whatever, a little bird. And he told him to cut them in half, to slaughter them, and cut the animals in 2. And they should place 1 piece here, one half here on one side and 1 half on the other side. But the bird he should not slaughter or cut. And what happened was, the commentators tell, the point of all of this was, because in that time, as probably up till very later years, the way to have made a covenant, when 2 people, or 2, God and Maya, made a covenant, what they did was they take a single entity, separate it in half, and the two parties that made the covenant would then walk between these 2 parts. And the symbolism was that just like the 2 parts are really one, we are 2 people, but we're also really one. And going between means that they made this unity. What is a pact? What is this covenant? A covenant is a promise that the love that we share today, even which is because we are very happy with each other, we're friendly and we're deeply in love, this love should be everlasting. That means even if something happens between us, which will be reason for the love to no longer exist, we're making now this covenant that our love will remain through everything, no matter what happens. And that it's an eternal commitment to each other, and that's what God made with the Jewish people with Abraham. He made with him the famous covenant. And he foretold Avraham all the troubles. It's not as if it was a covenant in which God was just always hunky-dory, and it was all going to be good. Avraham was told right then that the future of the Jewish people is going to be one of tremendous turmoil. And he already told him that they're going to go into 4 different exiles. One in Egypt, one in Babylonia, the one of Greece, and the one of Rome, which we're still in. It's basically the same exile that lasted for 2,000 years. But then he promised him that this will all end, and the Mashiach will come. And he told Avraham, you're my man. This is all starting with you. So this is a very, very beautiful idea, if you think about it. It's a covenant that God made with him, and at that covenant he promised him the land of Israel, but not only this land of the 7 nations, which we conquered in the time of Joshua and then later David, but he promised him 3 other countries as well. Nations, the Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni. And that we never conquered yet. When will we conquer that? When Mashiach comes. And that extends to the Euphrates River, which is somewhere near Iraq. Imagine that. Huh?
It's easy to imagine.
It's easy to imagine. And then the story moves on to Sarah being barren. She couldn't have children. So she convinced Avraham to marry her maiden, her slave woman, a woman by the name of Hagar, and said, if you maybe you'll have children through her, it'll be on my account. I'll be built through her. And he did that. He married her, and she became pregnant immediately. And when that happened, Hagar began to take Sarah lightly. She began to disrespect her. Because she realized, she said, her Sarah is married to Avraham many years and she didn't have any children. And here I immediately got pregnant from him. So my merit must be greater than Sarah's. So all these years I thought that Sarah was some whatever and I'm nobody. But here I see it's the opposite. I'm the big, So she began to start mistreating Sarah. So Sarah wouldn't take that, of course, and she caused her to run away, to leave. And she was depressed, and an angel came to her, and the angel promised her that, don't worry, you're going to have a son, and he's going to be a big nation as well, and his name was Yishmael. Oh. Yishmael, who's the father of the Arab world. Yeah. From him come all the Arabs. And he promised her, and he says it's in the Torah, that he will be a wild man, a very wild person. Let me read it to you. And he will be a wild ass of a man.
Wild ass of
Yeah, that's what it says. His hand in everything, and everyone's hand against him. So, however you want to interpret that, it's quite a foretelling prophecy. And she ends up having, and she told her, you'll name him Yishmael. She gives birth to him, and they named him Yishmael, as the angel said, and that's now Avraham is 86 years old when he has Yishmael. And Sarah is how much? 76. But Sarah is not the mother of Yishmael. 13 years later, when Yishmael was 13 and Avraham was 99, God appears to Abraham once again. And he tells him now, he says, I want to make you complete, a complete person. How are you going to become complete? He says, I'm going to make now my ultimate covenant with you and for your descendants following you, and that is the covenant of the circumcision. The mitzvah to every male to circumcise at the age of 8 days old. And this is a mitzvah that I have to say is probably the only mitzvah that survived of all the mitzvot. The mitzvah of circumcision survived the test of time like no other mitzvah, probably. It's hard to find a Jew today, in the West at least, in Israel of course, in the West. In Russia it was not that way, because they made it, they put you in jail if you did it. But everywhere else that they allowed for circumcision to happen, Jews, almost 100% of the Jewish people, circumcised their children. It's a mitzvah that for whatever reason, it's an interesting phenomenon if you think about it. It should be studied, this phenomenon, because it's a hard mitzvah to do. You're inflicting pain on a little kid. It would be one of the mitzvahs that you would say, if we're going to throw out a mitzvah, the Jewish people don't want to do some mitzvahs, this would be the first that they would throw out. Because this is a painful mitzvah. And who wants to inflict pain on a newborn baby, their own child? Yet, every father and every mother, almost without fail, does this mitzvah and doesn't even, it's like there's no question that it's done. A bris, a moil, you get a moil, you do the bris. There's no, and take pictures. It's a festive event. It's not people say, well, maybe they're doing it for health reasons. But if they were doing it for health reasons, they would do it in the hospital and that would be it, right? But they don't. They make a whole event out of it. It's a catered meal. It's a photographer. So that's not about health. That's about some deep religious significance.
Was Avraham circumcised? at a younger age?
No, Avraham
When he
was
older?
99. He was
When he
99.
was 99.
I imagine that, 99 years old. He cut himself.
Circumcised himself.
He did it himself, with God's
God.
help. It says that God helped him. But, and he did. And guess what? Yishmael also circumcised himself at 13 days old. 13 years old.
13 years, yeah.
Yeah, so this was no small...
And they still do that today at 13?
I think they don't. No, I think they do it the babies when they're born. I don't think they do it when they're 13. And the masses doesn't. They used to, but they don't. And he circumcised his whole household, and Yishmael circumcised at the age of 13, and so it was. And that's the end of this portion. It was a full portion. So what I want to do now is I want to speak about this mitzvah of circumcision a little bit, because it's a phenomenal mitzvah and a phenomenal concept that, as I mentioned, remains with the Jewish people in a wonderful way. I mean, it's marvelous. It's marvelous to see this. That even the most secular of people, of parents, when it comes to circumcision, they don't. It's not even a question. It's not should we, shouldn't we not, and it's a debate, and they decide yes. There's no debate. It's an obvious thing to every parent that they're circumcising their children. Why? Why is that? I want to share with you a midrash. The Midrash tells us that when Yitzchak was born, which is next week's portion, so then, of course, Yitzchak was circumcised. He was the first Jew to be born. Avraham wasn't born Jewish. He became Jewish at the covenant. And God made a covenant with him. But Yitzchak was the first born Jew. So he naturally made the circumcision at what age? At 8 days. At 8 days old, like what God said. So when Yitzchak grew up, the Medrash tells us that Yitzchak and Yishmael would argue, would fight. The Torah tells us also that there was a problem in the house. But part of the fighting was about this mitzvah. You heard this? You know the fight that they had? The fight that they had was, the argument they had was, Yishmael always used to tell Yitzchak, I'm better than you. Why am I better than you? Or he used to say, I deserve to be the rightful heir, that one that's going to inherit Avraham, our father, after he passes away. I'm his prodigy. Why is that? Because I circumcised myself when I was 13 years old. I was able to say no. And that I didn't. I chose to do what God wanted, which is an impressive thing if you think about it. He's a 13-year-old boy, and he says, go ahead. Because God said he wants it. He's a righteous person. So Yitzchak would throw back at him, no, I'm more special, because I circumcised when I was 8 days old, and I didn't have a choice. What is the meaning of this? If I were to ask you, sitting here at the table, you, listening to this argument, who do you think is right? What would you say if you were listening to two kids? One is 13, he went and had a circumcision when he was 13 years old and underwent all this pain, when he could have said no. Yet he said, yeah. He could have said no. He wouldn't have been forced, I don't think. And Yitzchak is 8 days old. He doesn't know he doesn't even know anything. You know, what's 8 days? Yeah. They bring him in, he cries for 2 seconds, you put a pacifier in his mouth and it's over, right? Not so when you're 13. How do I know? You know how I know. Because when I was in Russia, I told this to you before. When I was in Russia in 1990, we did, in my hotel room, we made an announcement in town, in the Dnepropetrovsk, and on a certain day, we are going to make a day of circumcision. Believe it, I'm not joking. Not for babies.
No.
for kids, for adults. And we had 6 adults come to our hotel room, and we had a meal. I kid you not.
Oh.
And we had 6 circumcisions in my hotel room in that one day. And I'm telling you, and there was one 13-year-old there, and one 8-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and a 19-year-old, and adults. And I am telling you that if Yishmael agreed to circumcise himself at 13 years old, it's quite a devoted individual. Because I saw those faces. This was not an easy thing for them to do. The pain was unbelievable. Of course, they had underwent local anesthesia, but that alone is painful. And then the recovery takes a few days, and it's painful, and it's just a very, very... we have videos of the kids, not by the circumcision, of course, but of afterwards laying in bed, and it was. I have to tell you, for me, it was probably one of the most meaningful days of my life, because it's one thing to stop a Jew in the street and put on film with him. It's quite a different thing to circumcise someone at 13 years old or at 18 years old, and you have to understand, it's not that they were deeply committed Jews that learned Torah all their life, and they had an appreciation for the mitzvah of the circumcision. You're talking about the Russian Jews. This 8-year-old couldn't tell you his Hebrew name. He couldn't tell you who Abraham was. Forget about him. He couldn't even tell you who's the first one that had a bris. Where does it all come from? All he knew, he was Jewish and Jews circumcised. That was enough for him to lay himself out horizontal and allow this to happen to him. It was just an amazing thing. So if you're hearing this argument, I mean, if you would tell me, take that 12-year-old or that 8-year-old and put him up an 8-day-old, and who's more significant? I know who's more significant. There's no doubt that I have the respect I have for that 8-year-old and that 12-year-old and that 18-year-old and that 16-year-old is way much greater than the respect I have for an 8-day-old kid that doesn't know what's going on with him. So is Yishmael not right? Isn't Yishmael, who argued with Yitzchak and said, I think I deserve to be the follower, the successor of Avraham, because I was a man that made this choice to follow God's ways and circumcise. You were 8 days old, you didn't make a choice. So who's right, in your estimation? Of course, it sounds like Yishmael is right. But the Medrash says that no, Yitzchak is right. And Yitzchak said, because I had it at 8 days old. So this is something I want to explain. Why? Why is Yitzchak right?
Because
obviously Yitzchak is right.
Because that's what God wanted?
Yes, God wanted it, but so did God want Yishmael to circumcise at 13, and he did. In other words, the question is, why is an act of an 8-day-old child who knows nothing about what he is doing more significant than an act of a 13-year-old that does know what he's doing and chooses to do the right thing? This is a very important question. And my friends, I want to tell you that the answer to this question is going to be the fundamental. The answer to this question relates to the fundamental quality of the Jewish people. But before I answer this question, I want to ask you another question. And that brings me to the beginning of this portion. The beginning of the portion, we read about Avraham. The first thing we hear about Avraham is when he's 70 years old, or 75, and God tells him, pick yourself up, and leave your father's house, leave your birthplace, leave your land, leave everything behind, and go. And he goes. This is the first story about Avraham. Now, who is Avraham? Where did he come from? And what's his background? The Torah says nothing about him. He's born, and then it jumps 75 years and says, now at 75 God tells him to move, to go. So you look in the Medrash, we get the rest of the story of who Avraham was. We find out that Avraham had a rich youth, a very, very exciting youth. He was a boy of 3 years old and recognized the truth of the one God. And when he was 13 years old, he recognized it even at a deeper level. And when he was a little bit older, he would realize the stupidity and silliness of idol worship. The Medrash tells us that his father was a merchant, had a business of selling idols, and one day he appointed Avraham to be the shopkeeper, because he was out doing things, and he put him in charge of the idol shop, and he came back and all the idols were broken to pieces on the floor. That's the father came back. He asked Avraham, what happened here? What's going on? He said, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened. He says the big idol that was in the front of the store got angry at the smaller idols, and they got into a big fight, and they beat each other up, and I couldn't stop it. It was just a disaster. That's what he told them, and they fought, and I was trying to meddle and try to get them to all calm down and make peace, and it wouldn't happen. They broke each other's necks and bones, and this is the result. So Terach, his father, laughs at him. He says, you kidding me? They can't fight. It's wood. What is an idol? It's made out of wood. It's made out of stone. So what are you telling me? They got into a fight. You're making fun of me. So he says, Father, listen to your own words. They can't move, so you believe that it's a God? How could you be so silly to believe that a piece of wood is a God? He can't defend himself from me breaking his neck, and you're telling me that he's a God? In that way, he was able to bring his father to some sense. And Terach did tshuva at the end of his life, we're told. He repented from his evil ways. But Avraham was a man of tremendous accomplishment. The story goes in the Medrash that Terach, in his early years, when Avraham was breaking the idols and did that whole shtick, he went and informed against him to the emperor, whose name was Nimrod, by the way. And the emperor called Avraham and told him, if you don't stop this, I'm going to kill you. And there was a showdown. And he made a fire. And he told Avraham, if you don't give up your belief in your God and you don't worship the idols and sin, I'm throwing you into this furnace. And he did. He threw him into the fire and he came out alive. A miracle happened. So here we have a man, and then the Torah tells us further, the Medrash, that for many years, for decades, he would promote this belief, and he made a lot of Baal Tshuvas. He made a lot of people follow his. He gathered around him a tremendous amount of new believers. Yet, we hear nothing about all of this. The first thing we hear about Avraham after his birth is that God tells him to go to Israel. Why don't you tell us a little bit who he is? Who is this man? Why is he the one that God chose to send to Israel? Tell us the backdrop. Give us a little history. Give us a little bit of familiarize with who's this man. And it's not as if there's nothing to say about it. There's a whole lot. Yet nothing. So I want to bring the beginning of the portion and the end of the portion and tie them together and answer these two questions. Question number one, why is Yitzchak right? Why is the 8-day-old bris infinitely more significant than the 13-year-old bris? And why we hear nothing about Avraham? So the answer to this question is as follows. We'll start with the bris. Let's take Yishmael. Yishmael is not Jewish. He wasn't Jewish. He was a regular person. His father Avraham comes to him one morning and says, I have news for you. God spoke to me last night and he told me that, we got to take care of some business. I'm 99, you're 13. I know it's not going to be the easiest thing, but he wants us to cut our flesh, this foreskin, to circumcise. I can imagine, I'm listening, you can always imagine what happened. You put yourself into the house, into that time, Yishmael looks up at his father, probably told him, yeah, Dad, thanks for the good news, let's wait till after after the baseball game, right? What do you think was going through Yishmael's head at that moment? Yes, I'm there. Where can I lay down? He thought about it. He told his father, what is this about? And he told him, God, I know it's not easy, but when God says something, it's probably the right thing to do. God is greater than us. He knows better than us. And this is good for us. This is the right thing to do. And he got into a conversation with him, father and son. And he convinced him. He said, you know what, Father, you're right. I want a relationship with God. I think it's the right thing for me. And if God is the one that asked for this to happen, it's probably the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it. That's what happened, right? You agree with me that something like that happened? I mean, a 13-year-old is not going to, he never heard about this before. So you must ask, what's this all about? What is a bris? What's a why that part of the body? Like God wants, why does he want me to cut that? So he explained to him the whole philosophy around circumcision. That when you cut away in that area, it reduces the passion for physical pleasures. And he went into a whole discussion with him about it. And he convinced him. He said, I'm 13 years old, I'm a smart boy. I get what you're saying. It's probably a good thing to do. And here I am, I'm ready to do it. Now let's take Yitzchak. Yitzchak is born. And he is taken out of his crib when he's 8 days old. His father looks at him, gives him a kiss in his forehead. And of course doesn't say anything to him because there's no one home, there's no one hearing, there's no one to talk to. It's only 8 days old. And he hands him over to the male. So let's analyze these two events. Yishmael lays down on the bed and asks the male and says to the male, I'm doing that. I want to do this. This is my choice. I'm going to do this because I understand that this is a great thing for me. This is a good thing for me to do because this is going to allow me to be in a meaningful relationship with God, and it will make me a better person, more spiritual, more spiritually sensitive, and so on and so forth. And he goes ahead and does it. What happened over there with Yishmael? What is the significance of that event?
He did it more.
This is a person. Listen, I want you to understand this. It's very important. This is a person who is a creation of this world, right? And being a creation of this world means that you are limited by the limitations of this world. So everything about a human being is limited. From the beginning, from his highest quality to his lowest. What is his highest quality? His intellect. Certainly the highest quality of the human experience is intellect. So Yishmael at 13 is a brilliant boy, undoubtedly. Avraham's son. He must have been a brilliant boy. So he makes the decision to go ahead and do the circumcision. Why did he make the decision again? Because his inner qualities, his inner faculties, his brain, his mind, and his heart led him, motivated him, pushed him to do it, to agree to this. This is the right thing for me. So this is a human being reaching up to the creator of the world and saying, I want a relationship with you. I want to do this. My mind tells me it's good. My heart tells me it's good. Here I am. I'm doing it. So this is a human being reaching up to God. Do you see the limitation there? Do you see the limitation in this
Yes.
event?
Yes.
This is an event that's being motivated by a human mind. A 13-year-old mind, which is a sophisticated mind. Now let's take the story of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is lifted out of his out of his crib and is handed over to the male, no questions asked, diaper off, cut, bracha, cut, crying, and everyone sings Mazel Tov. Right? What happened just now? Was this a human being, a creation reaching up to God?
No. It was
not at all.
God reaching up.
This is a child that has absolutely no idea what's going on with him. This is a child who is entering into a covenant with God on God's terms. You understand the difference?
Yes.
Yishmael entered into the covenant with God on his terms. His terms are human terms. Human terms are limited. You know what the problem with that is? It's limited in scope, it's limited in depth, it's limited in time. Because Yishmael, as the story happens later, he begins to have second thoughts about his relationship with God. So what happens when he has second thoughts? He says to Avraham, take your God and leave me alone. I'm out of here. And he lives with his mother. They leave the house of Avraham. They become idol worshippers again. But he made a bris when he was 13. He was a great kid. What happened? Well, what happened when he was 13? He did it because his terms, his intellect, his limited scope, his limited understanding of God at that moment led him and convinced him that this is the right thing. Your perceptions and your convictions can change. And they did. Yitzchak, on the other hand, what happened to him? He's 8 days old, and his father doesn't ask him a question. Boom, inside and out, he enters into a covenant on terms that are infinite, on terms that are godly, that are God's terms. God said at 8 days before you even know how to say yes or no, before you can understand anything, before you can do anything, before you're a human being almost. I want you to cut into your physical flesh and make you mine. That's a covenant that is based on God's terms. A covenant that's based on God's terms is eternal. It never ends. Because God never ends. God's perceptions and God's convictions don't change. Ani Hashem leishanisi, I'm God, I don't change, says the verse. So that covenant never changes. Because it was never made on the human terms. It was made on God's terms. And that's why Yishmael, that was the point that he missed, that Yitzchak understood deeply. Yitzchak tells Yishmael, no. It's because when I was 8 days old, that's when I did it. That's why I'm much more than you. That's why I am the true heir of Abraham. I am the true son.
He didn't even question the mitzvah.
He couldn't question. He couldn't question. As I did. It's before he has a mind to question. We're already bringing him into the covenant. You connect a Jewish child with God before he's a human being. Before he develops the quality of human being, the quality of being a human being. The brain, the heart, the so on and so forth. The neshama is connecting at that level. It's a neshama, a soul connection. And therefore Yitzchak tells Yishmael, no, I'm the real son of Avraham. Why is he the real son of Avraham? After all, Avraham did it at 99 also, not at 8 days old. Right? And now this brings us to the beginning of the portion. In the beginning of the portion, the Torah is telling us what is a Yid? What is a true Jew? What is the relationship between the Jewish people and God based on? Because after all, the story of Avraham and the story of Lech Lecha, this week's portion, starts the story of the Jewish people. So now let's analyze Avraham's life. He's 3 years old, he's wandering in the street, and he's around the idols, and he looks up to heaven one day and he realizes this can't be true, these idols. There's got to be something more. How does he reach it? That conclusion? The mind of a 3-year-old. Not very sophisticated, but still, he thought about it. He realized idols are silly, God is true, and therefore I'm going to stop believing God. Becomes 12, 13, an adult, he begins to develop the idea on a more sophisticated level, to the point where he is convinced 1,000% that God is it, and he starts promoting this belief, and he gives up his life for this belief. That belief becomes so connected to his being that he's ready to give up his life. And none of this is recorded in the Torah. Why? Because over here, the Torah is not interested in telling us about human beings getting closer to God. That's not the story of the Jewish people. That's the story of the Gentiles. A good Gentile is someone that reaches the conclusion that it's good to have a relationship with God. But what happened with Avraham when he was 70 years old? And what the Torah records, that's the story that the Torah records. The story begins with the other way around. God said to Avraham, go, move. Without telling us about all Avraham's accomplishments. Why? Because over here what's important is to tell us the uniqueness of the relationship between the Jewish people and God. The uniqueness of this relationship is not that we search God. It's the other way around. God searched us. He taps Avraham on the shoulder and says, hello, I want you to leave your place of birth and your father's house and go to Israel. That starts a whole new relationship. Now it's a relationship on God's terms. He's doing the talking. He's doing the reaching out. Till Avraham was 70 years old, Avraham did the reaching out. How did he reach out to God? What convinced him that God exists? His brain, his heart, the human element, on human terms. And he became so involved with this belief that he was even ready to give up his life. Truly extraordinary. But all human created. This is all on his terms. But when he was 70 years old, a whole new kind of relationship with God began. A relationship that is now going to be dictated on the terms of God. Now I'm doing the talking. Meaning, now it's on my terms. And that means that it's infinite. God reaches down up from heaven down to earth and takes us and says, I want you to do this for me. Not because you're such a great man and you have such a good mind. That's wonderful. Truly wonderful. But that's not what it was about. This was about God choosing Avraham, not Avraham choosing God. It's a very big difference. When a man chooses God, it's only man that chooses God. What does it mean you're choosing? Why are you choosing? Because your brain is telling you to choose. Again, it's limited to your brain's capacity. So that can change, fluctuate. It's up for grabs. As it was by Ishmael, it was up for grabs. He got excited about idol worship when he was 20 years old. He left God and went to idol worship. Because when he chose God, it was on his own terms. It was a limited choice. It was a rational, motivated choice. And human rationale, as great as it is always going to be flawed and limited in scope and breadth and length and time. But when God does the choosing, when God says to us, you are mine, it's not us telling God, you are ours. It is God telling us, you are mine. That never changes. Because that's God-made. That's a God-made covenant. Not a human-made covenant. Yishmael's bris was a human-made covenant. Yitzchak's bris was a God-made covenant. Similar to Avraham, before 70 and after 70. Till Avraham was 70, it was a man-made. There was a man-made search of God, and he reached great levels, but limited to his ability. After all, he's a human being. How much could a human appreciate a godly connection? as much as his mind is going to motivate it. The mind is limited, so the connection is limited. The same by Yishmael. His mind is limited, so his connection that comes from the mind is limited. But by a Yid, and that's the quality of the chosen people. That's the meaning of the chosen people. God chose them, not they chose God. It's the world of a difference. The story of the Jewish people in our Torah starts with God choosing Avraham, not Avraham choosing God. It's all that makes all the difference in the world. So undoubtedly the Medrash wants us to know who Avraham was till he was 70. This is no small person. This is the ultimate perfection a human being can reach, was Avraham till 70. 70 and on, it's not anything a human being can reach. That's God reaching out to the human being. That's God taking the human and bringing him up to heaven. And when God does the work, it's truly heavenly. It's infinite. That's the story of Avraham. And that's the story of Yitzchak. Why Yitzchak's bris is the ultimate. The 8-day-old bris is infinitely more significant than the 20-year-old bris of a non-Jew, meaning of Yishmael. I once heard, to conclude this, a beautiful idea. But after all, there's something in us that says Yishmael's got a point. No? He does have a point. He made the choice to do it. A kid 8 years old doesn't have a choice. So that perfection that Yishmael did have, he did have a certain advantage, that he did it with his own volition, whereas Yitzchak didn't. Isn't there an advantage in that? There is. There clearly is an advantage in doing it with your own volition. Where do we have that? When you were 8 days old, you didn't have the choice. It was not with your volition. So when do you do a bris with your own volition? You know when? When you have a son. And you take him out of the crib and you give him to the mother. That's now you're doing it you're doing it for your son with your own volition. So when we have a child that we choose to do it, to have the child do the bris, that's already the father making the choice. So then, when we were 8 days old, we connected to God on God's terms. But later, we also enhance our relationship with the advantage of our own, that we also agree to it when we give our children to the male to do our bris. We choose to make the bris for our children. So you have both advantages. So that's in a nutshell the story of Avraham and the story of the Jewish people.
A big nut.
It's a very interesting concept. And that's the truth. That's our story. That's why the birth of Yitzchak, the circumstances of his birth are miraculous. He was born in a miracle. His mother was 90 years old. His father was 100. His whole birth was a miracle. Why? Because this is the firstborn Jew. The Jewish people are a miracle. Their survival is a miracle. Their very existence is a miracle. Their firstborn Jew is a miracle. He came into the world as a miracle. And there's a reason for that. Because God wants us to know that our existence is entirely otherworldly. And that's the neshama. That's why we have a soul that is otherworldly, that is sent down here to make this world otherworldly. And that's what the mitzvahs are. And the mitzvahs are also on God's terms. He gave the mitzvahs. We didn't choose to do these mitzvahs. He gave us these mitzvahs. In other words, we didn't choose the mitzvahs. He chose them. So every time we do a mitzvah, we put on tefillin. Every time we eat kosher, we do a sheikh lulav on sukkahs, and we give charity, whatever mitzvah we're doing, we're connecting to the it's an infinite event. It's a cosmic event. It's a godly, it's a divine, infinitely divine event that's being done in this physical, limited world through us. So this is a tremendous story. We should be mindful of this. You know, people always say, but I want to know, I want to understand. And you should try to understand. But Judaism is much beyond human logic. It's God reaching down to Avraham and telling him, now you are going to be chosen by me on my terms. That's why the Torah clearly does not tell us who Avraham was before 70. Because that would ruin the whole story.
How did we find out?
The Medrash tells it to us. Because that would ruin the story. Because then you would think that the reason that he is so special is because he chose God when he was 3 and 10 and 12 and 15 and 18. That's not true. That is not the story of the Jewish people. That is a great story about Avraham. And you got to know it. But the Torah makes sure that it doesn't say that. The story of the Jewish people starts when he's 70. When God reaches down to earth and says, you are my people. Not when earth reached up to God and said, you are my God. That anyone can do, and anyone should do. But God should reach down and say, I am choosing you to be mine. That only God can do. And he did that with Avraham when he was 70. Not when he was 3. When he was 3, he reached up to God. But that's not who the Jewish people are. Anyone is. That's the story of all mankind. Avraham, before he's 70, is the story of all mankind. All mankind should reach up to God. Every human being should believe in God and not worship idols. God forbid. So the Torah doesn't tell that as the story of the Jewish people. That's the story of all mankind. The story of the Jewish people starts when God reached down to Avraham and said, you are now mine. On my terms. Now you're going to have mitzvahs that will connect you to the infinite world, not to the finite world. See, Avraham till 70 reached the perfection of the finite human being. When he was 70, he transcended the limited realm, and he reached into the divine realm, to the infinite divine realm. But he didn't reach in. He didn't reach out. God reached in and brought him there. Understand the difference?
Right.
So now, go do a mitzvah.
Okay.
And become infinitely divine. That's the truth. It's not a... Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
And a wonderful night and a wonderful week.